So we're live. Like always, I'm gonna wait a couple minutes here till we get some viewers coming in. There's really no point in doing this until we got people watching. But we're starting the stream. Just trying to make sure that everything's good. Yeah. Everyone seems to be sleepy, or well, at least calming down. It's a somewhat positive thing. Oh, there we go. We got a viewer. All right. Might give it maybe about 30 more seconds before we get started. If I have time, I'll. Last time I said I would cut this out, and then the actual presentation took longer than 30 minutes, and this application only lets you cut 30 minutes of video, so it doesn't let you go beyond 30 minutes. So that's why you haven't seen a cut of the last one, because it did take a bit longer than I thought to do the actual presentation part. Like I said, we'll wait a minute here, see what's happening. I do think there are some other things going on right now that might be drawing people's attention instead. But we might go ahead and proceed. Oh, hang on. I got to get a couple things ready. Let's start this. There we go. And then we'll do, there we are. This, and for now we'll do the chat overlay. So there we go. All right. So we'll get started then. So today's talk is about we're still in HTML, but we're talking about the HTML DOM. What it is, what's it used for, why is it important to learn about, those kinds of things. So that's what we'll at least talk about for now. We'll at least try for now. Very basically, let's just go ahead and put the definition of the DOM. So what is the DOM? The DOM stands for Document Object Model. It's a definition, all right. What is it? What does it actually stand for then? Basically, the HTML DOM is if you had to call it anything, if I had to call it anything, which I will, I'd call it sort of an API for HTML. Not an API like a REST type API where you're communicating to a backend, but an API like a programming type API. Those two terms have the exact same terminology, but they are quite different. Maybe what you'd even call an SDK, a software development toolkit of sorts. So that's really what the DOM is sort of used for. It's a way for programming languages, nowadays almost entirely JavaScript. I say that because, for those of you who don't know, there was VBScript in the past that could actually access the DOM as well. So, but very few people, I doubt there's anyone that even uses VBScript anymore, or even anyone around that even knows it even ever existed. But yes, you basically use JavaScript to access. You can access just about anything within the document. You can get pieces of the document by things like their tag name. You can get them by a specific ID, by a class name being CSS classes, in case you're wondering. And so there's many different ways to retrieve one or more elements that are on a page. And then, you say, well, what's the purpose? Okay, that's great. You can retrieve programmatically, you can retrieve an element on a page. What for? What is the point of that? Well, the point of that is because the DOM and things like that is what has made HTML still prevalent to this day. It's also what's made web development become something that we can actually create full-fledged applications using. So basically, yeah, you can retrieve any one particular element, multiple elements, even doesn't have to be one. It can be a group of elements or things of that nature through JavaScript. JavaScript has, and like I said, I did say in my post that I would have to bring up JavaScript sometimes because that's really what utilizes the DOM is JavaScript, is some kind of programming language. So basically, yeah, through JavaScript, you can do, I believe it's called get element by, and then, if you have, like I said, if you have the specific ID, it's get element by ID. If you have, a particular class that's applied to it, get element by class. I think it's class or class name. I have to look it up. I don't have it in front of me. And then there's one more, get element by tag name. I know that one. That's the other one. Get element by tag name. So you can say, give me all the elements that are div elements, and all the div elements will come back. And so, and I'm sure there might be one more, but those are the main ones, and that's how you do the things you do. That's how a lot of frameworks utilize some of these things. If you've gone into React before and you've gotten a reference to a particular piece of DOM, you will find that that's behind the scenes. More than likely, that is using something along those lines. It's actually waiting for that piece of DOM to be created and retrieving it by one of those methods under the hood. So the question then comes down to why? What's so important about it? Why is the DOM needed? What is so great about it? What is so important to learn about it? Well, there's a lot of information in those that are stored in those documents, and those pieces in the document, those pieces of markup within the document. There's different things you can do with that. One such thing, I had a live stream, it wasn't that long ago, maybe about a month ago now, where we talked about centering a div on the screen, and we talked about recursion within the web. And I showed what you can do with recursion by going up the parent element chain. You can basically recurse from a starting point upward until you find something that you're looking for. You can actually just search upward through there, looking for whatever you may want to look for. There's all kinds of information stored on these things. There's simple things as to specific attribute names that you may want to look for, and you may want to look for some kind of setting in there. I've used it. Some of my code that I've written, and some of the stuff I showcased as part of the recursion talk, utilized actual CSS classes, CSS settings, actual class settings on there. And you can do that. You can actually take a piece, you can take a retrieve DOM element, and you can find out what the actual CSS settings, I'm not talking about. I'm glad one of those that was one of your favorite streams. Good. But yeah, there's you can go through and you can take the element and you can find out what individual parts are actually there, and find out what kind of settings it has, what kind of class elements it has, what kind of properties are applied to it, things of that nature. And so basically, yeah, you can, but there's a lot more you can do than just that. There's a lot more you can do than just looking at the styles. You can store now back around about HTML 4-ish days. You ended up they had something in it that was referred to as XHTML. And XHTML was the ability for HTML to work sort of like XML, where you could put any property you wanted to on a piece of markup. And that kind of data could be stored there then on that particular piece of markup, kind of like XML, hence the XHTML concept and the naming behind XHTML. Nowadays, more what you see data properties. So you'll see it data and then the name of the property. You don't really have to do that. I believe the XHTML stuff still works, but I haven't used that. The one I do use nowadays, and what most of us use, is data and then the name of the data property. Once again, why are these kind of things important? Well, these kind of things are important because storing information on these pieces of markup might be important. A very good reason is if you've ever implemented sort of a drag and drop interface. as you're dragging pieces across, you may want to store data on each one of these pieces. So when you drag it from one section to another, you know which one has been dragged. When you're creating the markup, you may be pulling something from a database, from an API, from something, and it may have some actual information in that then you're storing in each element. So as you drag it across, and then it knows, oh, well, this one that got dragged across has this ID in it, has this particular data in it. And you can tie it back to your actual data source and find out what got dragged across, what's where, this got brought over here, and you can actually then go through when you're finished with all this, and you can grab all of these pieces of information and then utilize them somehow to create some kind of data then you're going to send. Because a good example, and I've done this before, is creating maybe a drag and drop kind of interface where you're creating a form type interface where you have on the side, you have a list of different types of elements, and you can drag them across, drop downs, text boxes, and all this, and create an actual form. And then when you save that form, you save it and you go through those individual items. Your front end technology that you're using. I've used Angular, I've used React to do both. I've used both those to do these type of things before. What you end up doing is you end up then going through all of these items, looping through them all and going, okay, well, here's this, and you marry these things up and you figure out how they're organized. It's in a row like this, and this has 3 in this row, and this has 2 in this row, and this has this, and has this. You go through the whole thing, and then you can easily use that to recreate the information you need to save that information into an actual data store, and then to recreate it if you need to save it and then reload it back in. So as simple as this talk is about what the DOM is and things of that nature, it can really be used to hold a lot of very important information. And it's kind of that type of stuff, being able to do that type of stuff, having those types of things. There's more. I'm going to talk about it here in a minute, but we're starting down this path. Is sort of the beginnings of what can be an actual application, the information that can be used to create an actual application. And so that's where this type of stuff comes in. That's where DOM becomes very important, because it allows you to traverse through things. It allows you to find out, if you're at a particular element, what child elements are beneath you. It allows you to create items on the fly. It allows you to determine where you are in accordance from where you were clicked. We'll see here in a minute what I'm talking about when I'm talking about clicks, and I'm talking about events, and that's the next part we're going to talk about. But because that is another very important part of the DOM. So the first part is the properties that are there, the styles that are applied, and things of that nature. And I might have to, yes, I will. I'm going to have to stop for a second and tell this dog to, here, I'm going to mute. Come on, that's it. Yeah, the loveliness of having a pit bull who just has the strength of a man. He's so strong. He's not that big, but he's strong. Anyways, you sit. He ran. He pulled away. I have him somewhat connected here to the chair because he was already acting up before this started. Anyways, yes. So as you'll see here in just a minute, we'll talk through things. I will have a very basic explanation, because really there's so much you could go into in DOM, and this is an HTML discussion, not a JavaScript discussion, which you could go down. You could go down so many avenues with JavaScript, and I do plan eventually to get to that point in talking about JavaScript, but that could go on for a while, which is going to be nice. It'd be nice to talk about all the very beginnings of all that, but let's not go that route yet. Anyways, So yes, so the DOM is very important in doing things like storing data, like finding out where things are in relationship to the other things that we have. Um, getting here's the next part. So we said we'd talk about events. So let's go ahead and let's talk about events. So there's a number of different events that happen, and it depends on the type of element that you're interacting with to what you can do. Here, let me see if I can. I'm gonna try to throw together maybe something really simple. I was gonna just do something super simple, but now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it wouldn't be so bad to throw together maybe a very basic form. That would be nice to do. Let's see here on input. Let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a quick screen share just to show what I'm doing so you guys aren't bored listening to me talk to myself as I sort of type this. So there we go. So what I'm going to do here is just I was going to just have a really simple thing where I just showcased something being clicked and then showing the click event and leaving it at that. Let's see here, input event. Oh, no. I actually think what I have to say here, if I want to do it this way, is I think I have to say it like that. Boom, bam. And then you go here, and I think you do, yeah, there we go. So exactly, as you actually type, you'll see that the input event is fired on every single character that is typed. That's the input event. So this thing kind of picks up for, oh, I didn't even do that. It sort of makes do with whatever we have. But different elements can have different things. Here, you can do this. You could have, you've got on click. We'll do the same thing here. We'll say div clicked. And then you say, click me, like that. And there we go. And now we kind of click away. If we save, it'll just do this. There we go. And then when you click me, boom, there it is. I don't know if you can actually see. I'm hoping you can see the little, I don't know, can you? No, it doesn't show it. Dang it. There is an actual alert box. That's terrible. I was hoping you'd see the alert box. So maybe doing an alert isn't the best. Maybe instead, so you can see that it's actually doing something, maybe we need to go ahead and put the output into a div here. This will be interesting. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. So let's call it ID output. There we go, like that. And then we'll say JavaScript. I said that was get element by ID, right? And then we said output dot inner text is equal to clicked. Let's see if that works. Ah, there it goes. Perfect. So now we've got something you can at least see on the screen. So yeah, so what have we done here? Okay, well, what we've done here is we've added the on-click event, which is basically a click event. Since I'm not writing, I could technically, what I could have done is written a script tag up here, written some JavaScript, and just called it directly, just given the name of the actual script in there, and then in the script done the same thing that I did right here. But honestly, I just didn't want to take the time, although it probably would be faster than what I just did. But the idea is the same here. Actually, for the input, we probably would need to do that. We probably would need to actually do something along those lines. So here, we'll do that. We'll go ahead and we'll create a script tag real quick. It's been a long time since I had to do this. There we go. Boom. Now we'll say function. We'll call it display input data. Actually, this will be nice anyways. Yeah, because we can do that. So then we say, we should here be able to say, I think we should be able to say const at this point inside of JavaScript. So we'll say const input is equal to get element by ID output. So now we should have, that should be our input. So now that should be an element. So we won't have to do that. There we go. Okay, let's see. Are you all seeing this? Yes, everyone seems to be seeing it. Good. And now I've lost the spot again. So now we say input dot inner text is equal to, boy, that's going to be fun. It's going to be event dot, nah, it should be event dot target if I'm right. I'm going to guess on this. Event dot target dot value. I'm asking that questioningly just to see if that works. And then instead of this here, like I said, we could just call this, we say display input data and pass it the event that should be here. I believe that will work. Once again, it has been a while since I've done direct JavaScript like that. Nope, maybe not. Supposedly this thing has a console log. That's not helpful. No, that did not help at all. Let's see, can I close this? No, let's see here. So yeah, display input event. I might be able to, I'm not sure about this. I might be able to do simply that, but I don't think so. I don't think that's going to work. That's the type of stuff you do in things like get element by ID is not defined. Oh, hang on. This is that. There we go. That'll help. That might have been why. There we go. That might have been why we didn't get it in the first place. Yeah, that might help us now. Now let's try this. Not that. Okay, here we go. Nope, it still doesn't. Setting inner text. It says it doesn't have, let's see here, cannot set properties of null, setting inner text. So it's saying that input doesn't have a value. Let's try console.log input. Let's see what's there. Boom. No, it's not even logging. Cannot set properties. Why can it? Here, let's make sure that this thing is refreshed. Yeah, it doesn't want to work. Anyways, I'm getting lost and sidetracked here. You did see how the click me does display here. This is the main idea of where we're trying to get to with this. Basically, what we're trying to get to is the DOM has not only does the DOM have the ability to access individual properties. This gives me what I at least what I want to talk about here, which is this is the important part. But it also has the ability to do events and things of that nature. I do know there is a way to actually capture the event. I just don't remember for the life of me. Give you a shout out because I'm only your student. Okay. How's it going, Sean? Then. All right. Let's really quickly here. But yeah, basically that's where we're trying to head with this, though. The idea is something along this line. So yes, with the DOM, not only can you access the individual properties of these items, but you can also hook up to the events. Um, let's see here. Input event example. Yeah, but I want the event itself. Yeah, you can do that. Ah, there's how you do it. That doesn't seem right, but okay. Okay, it's saying here's how we do it is what it's saying. I don't believe that should be right, but maybe it is. Let's give it a try. Nope. I didn't think so. That came, by the way, in case anyone's wondering, that came from W3C's site. I have a really hard time believing that actually was it. I was like, wait a minute, I know there's an actual event that fires. We could do that. We could say, adding an event listener and things like that. We can use things like on input. But yeah, the my script, yeah, although that doesn't really help now, does it? My function, and then you say, I suppose you could do that, but that's just, I want to show the actual event. That's the problem. But yes, basically, there are events that fire. Basically, you can track the events. Inside the events come out things like the target values and things of that nature, depending upon the type of object that is used. In this case, an input. The event will have different pieces to it as well. Target, usually, if you have an input that has some kind of a value, you'll have target. Actually, I think you'll have target in just about anything. So in the on click here, basically this would have a target as well. This here would have an actual event that would have a target in it, and the target would be the div itself. What you can do with that when you receive the event, you'll have to find somewhere that it actually showcases how to do this. I know I've done this more times than I can remember, but I've been buried in React for so long. React sort of handles a lot of this for me. We could actually go to what I'm talking about in React. Actually, I've got a piece of some React code up here and kind of showcase basically how this type of stuff would work in something like React. Maybe that would be a little bit better than just going into here. So we will change our share to my my code here. Here we go. And so the idea is something along this lines, where you have a div element here, and when you click it, you fire an on-click event. In this case, it didn't have an event. It'd be nice if I had one that had an event to showcase exactly what I'm talking about. One of those would probably be over here in the mobile overlay navigation inputs. That's what I'm looking for, the inputs. The content editable input will have events that are fired as part of it, like focus listening and things of that nature. This is another thing I was going to show, is how when something gains focus. So focus event is an event that actually comes from the DOM. This is an event that gets fired basically whenever an item is focused. In our case, our focus listener actually gets added to an element here. This element gets added when the actual input element, the content editable input element itself, gets rendered. So this guy here, whenever you're typing into it, would actually then fire on input changes. Those on input changes would then would actually come up to here. And then you can take a look at things like that. So you've got event here, which is basically a focus event, but event has a target. Now we can actually dig in a little bit. I'll bounce in to kind of give a little bit more information as to how these goes. This is TypeScript's typings of the actual events that take place. Are these specific to React? Are these look like they are specifically um, the JavaScript event systems here. So you've got UI event, and then the main event, which is the event that most events inherit from, our event itself. Now, event itself is where you should see things like target. Here we are. Target, which has event target and those types of things. And a target can be just about anything, like I said. Target depends upon what you're actually the item that you're clicking, whether it's a text box, whether it's a button. Button, for example, won't have a value to it. Well, actually, would it? I don't know. I don't believe button would have a value. I could be wrong about that though. But you wouldn't be interested in what the button's value is. Let's just put it that way. If it does have a value, you're not really interested in it. Basically, for button, all you're really concerned about is if it's clicked. So if it's clicked, yay, it's fired. There we go. It's clicked. That's all there is to it. So we're not really all too concerned. So basically, in here is where you start to see things like adding event listeners to the target and things of that nature. But yes, just about every event has a target. There's a good amount of other things that come with those events that tell us a lot about the actual event that's fired. How can this help us? Well, this can help us in ways, for example, where maybe you want to do something that's somewhat generic. A very good example is, once again, in this library that I have here. A lot of times what I want to do is I want to run a piece of code whenever something fires, whenever something comes up the chain. And so sometimes when it fires the event, what I do is I can take that event and I can put it into a piece of JavaScript that then pulls out the target and does some determination type logic as to what needs to be done. I believe my overlay panel has something along those lines, but let's not get into too much depth. I said I was going to try to keep it simple, and now I'm getting way past simple at this point. Okay, Sean, I have given you a shout out, buddy. So yeah, let's try to get back to the point we were at here. So basically, yeah, what we came up to there was, yeah, that's really where the DOM kind of comes into play. So basically, you're trying to you've got all this information that you're looking to access, and that information, it can be used to create a myriad of things. As you saw there, me jumping into some code. Some of that stuff is some pretty complicated code. One of the things I was looking at was a date time selector. There's a lot of pieces of information there. There's a lot of stuff in JavaScript there that you can pull. There's a lot of things, that cause things to pop up. You'll have overlays that you can see. You'll have a number of different pieces that will just sort of work. And those things all come to play with accessing information that initially starts in the DOM. And not just initially starts in the DOM, but initially starts with an event that happened in the DOM. The on-click event, the on-focus event, as you saw there, me referencing the on-focus event, the on-input event. If you're typing something in and you want to, on-input is one of them. Also, another one, if you're in some of them, it's not on input, it's on change. Like if you're in one of the drop downs, one of the actual HTML drop downs, the HTML select component, it won't be on input, it'll be on change. So each time you change to a different value in there, it fires an on change event. Basically, that's really what this comes down to is learning about the DOM, learning what it is, learning how you access it, actually digging in and figuring things out, learning that there's things like events, that there's properties, that there's things like data properties that can be used to store data. When you store data, there's a property inside of the DOM that you can access through JavaScript referred to as data set. It's the data set property. So anything that you name, any data property that you name data will have its name and its value set inside that element's data set property. That then can be accessed in sort of an array like situation. It's more like a key value pair type situation is really what it is. So you give it the key and it gives you the value, whatever the value may be. And you can store all kinds of information in these kind of things. I've stored large quantities of information in some of these things just to make them work. Especially when you get into drag and drop situations and things like that, where you need to have certain information to know what has been dragged, and so you can figure things out and you can make things work. I've got at my full-time client right now. We've got a data grid component that we created ourselves, that we have the columns are draggable. So, you don't have to sit there and you don't have to try to bring up a little UI and then try to do all these little clicks and points and things like this and move things all around and try to do something as simple as change a position of a column. Instead, what do? You quite literally, you click on the column, you drag it, it comes up into this nice little drag animation. You drag it over where you want to, and when you get it to the right space, the different ones move over. You slide it into where it is, you drop it, boom, it's done. It's a very nice visual representation of an interface. Unfortunately, that's at my full-time client, and I'm not really allowed to show you that. I wish I could. It's a really nice interface to show, and it's something interesting to see. But yeah, that's the type of stuff that you can do with the DOM, with information in the DOM. Everything starts at that low level. Everything starts with the information you can retrieve and the information that you can pull from the DOM. I wish I could have gotten the actual JavaScript to work. Like I said, it's been a long time since I've had to manually write JavaScript, as you can tell. So yeah, I've been in front end world for too long, and I thought I was going to make this very simple. I didn't think I was going to do much more than just kind of show the basics of an event, which we showcased there. Yeah. What else is there? That's probably going to be it for the teaching side. I always like to finish with things that aren't necessarily tech related. And so, what was it I was going to talk about? I was going to mention something there. I was going to mention something to the effect of basically how I was talking about. Oh man, I've forgotten. My brain just went. uh, Basically, I like to try to kind of end things with a thought for something outside of tech, because I believe tech, while I enjoy tech and tech is very important, I think life is very important too. I think basic knowledge and understanding of most things is very important. Oh, that's what it came to. Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. There we go. I knew if I rambled on long enough, it would click in my head. I had a conversation with someone else, and it was kind of funny. He posed the question. I just got into the conversation, and he posed the question, and the question was, is there such a thing as stability? And trust me, someone who's been a software developer for 24 years and has been in not just one type of software development, but has gone into new avenues and has always tried to keep up with whatever is the latest and greatest out there. Even those that don't that want to stick to a particular type of programming, or a particular type of anything in whatever you do, even if it's not programming. I personally, and I told him this, I personally do not really believe in that there is such a thing as stability. I've never seen it. I'll just say that. Now, is that 100% true? No, of course not. There are some jobs that possibly are stable. If I had to pick up one, as soon as I thought about that, there was one company that came to mind that I worked for that I would have considered potentially a stable job, and that job was at 3M when I worked for 3M. And if 3M, I was a contractor there, I was not a full timer, but if 3M hired you full time, they planned on you retiring from them. So but those type of companies out there are very, very rare and are very, very few and far between. And so for the most part, I I think stability is kind of a myth. A lot of people, they want something that's stable. I had a boss that told me a very good piece of information. She was it was my second job out of college, and I don't know how the conversation started, but basically the talk of, jobs and having a job and having staying with the job long term came up. And she made the statement, and I've always remembered it. I loved her as a boss. She was probably one. Okay, she wasn't probably. She was definitely my the best boss I ever worked for. I still remember her name, and I remember a lot about her. Um, and she said something to me that stuck with me forever. And she said, no job can guarantee you, or no company, sorry, no company can guarantee you a job forever. The best that you can do is learn as much as you can at every position and take that knowledge to your next position. That's the stability that I think people need to understand. That's true stability right there, because uh, you're not going to have a company who's going to give you a full-time job for life. I'm not saying, the company, companies are necessarily evil or that, but let's just be honest. We all, things happen. Economies change. Jobs get lost. Companies lose money. They're not going to keep their employees around when they can't even when they can't even pay their own bills, right? So things happen. Things happen, and there really isn't much stability out there in general in the world. And when that person asked that, I even went back and thought about, were my parents ever even stable? Probably not. And I doubt any of our parents, and I doubt anyone here who remembers their childhood and maybe was as far away as mine was now. Um, had parents that were even stable then. It seemed that way, my luckily my parents never really let me in too much on the fact that things, if things were tight, if things were hard, if things were this, if things were that. But seeing how, I've got a pretty decent career, and I never have felt stable. Even right now, I don't feel stable because tomorrow something could happen, and we don't know. We never know. Something could happen, and suddenly everyone could have to be looking for another job. It's happened to me more times than I can count. So uh, I would say instead of looking for stability in a job, look for stability in learning as much as you can and taking that, and that is what will keep you in work. That is what will get you your next job. Because when you can come to a new potential employer, and they can hear all of the experience you have, and they can hear all the knowledge you have, and how hard you worked to get there, and how much you did, and all of these kinds of things, that's the kind of stuff that's going to actually matter in the end. So that's where you want to be. That's what your stability is. Your stability is basically being prepared for instability. If you're prepared for instability, then I think you're going to be okay. But don't rely on any one particular company to be your stable company. I knew a guy. I'll finish with this. I knew a guy. I had about 10 years of software experience, and I think I've mentioned this guy before. Actually, I think it's the second time I've told this story now. But I knew this guy who he had been at the same company for 10 years. For 10 years, he had been with the same company. And I was just amazed because by that time, me and him pretty much started programming, started doing software this pretty much at the same time. And he had had one job. And by that time, I had had 8, 9 jobs, maybe something like that. Yeah. I'd had quite a few. Let's just put it that way. Let's just put it that way. I'd had quite a few. And I was just in awe of the fact that he had lasted that long. But when it came down to it, I was really kind of surprised he got the job there because he didn't have I mean, he didn't even know how to do JavaScript. He had never even done JavaScript before. And he was very lucky to have found that job. I guarantee he was very lucky to have found that job, especially with the lack of knowledge that he had. And that's one of the, especially if you're going to be a software developer, that is like the death nail in your career. If you stay for if you worry more about stability in a company than stability in your skills. Your skills should be at a premium. They are the things that are going to make you stable. The more you know, the more chances you have at getting a job because the more things you can do. or the better you are at doing the things that you can do. Being as good as you can and knowing as much you can and being as good at those things that you know. So when you have to look for another job, you've got more opportunities, that you can apply for, and you've got a better chance of actually landing those positions because you've got the knowledge that they're looking for. So I would not worry about stability in a company. I would worry about stability in your skills. I'll leave it at that, guys. It's been fun talking as always. I hope you got something out of it. As always, if you want more information about HTML, DOM, things of that nature, you can either DM me, you can reply to the post for this live stream, or in any other way you want to contact me. Just contact me directly. There's this goes out across a number of different channels. You can hit me up on any of those channels too. So yeah, I hope to see you all again for the next one. And the next one is I'm thinking is probably going to have to start in CSS, because I really can't imagine anything else that I can go through in HTML. If someone does have a suggestion about something else that could be one more HTML topic, I'm all ears. I'd like to hear it. But I think I've kind of gone through the very basics. That's why I wanted to start with HTML, because HTML really is the base of everything. Because if you don't understand HTML, you're not going to understand CSS. You're not going to understand JavaScript. You're not going to understand anything else that's built on top of that, because that is, kind of the core. So that's why I started with this. That's why I've been, trying to go through everything I can think of in HTML so that I can give as much groundwork as possible. And I think the next one will probably be beginnings of CSS. And I'm going to have to start digging in and figure out exactly how to break down CSS and how many. I got a feeling there's probably going to be a good number of them out there, because there's a lot of features in CSS. And CSS kind of brings JavaScript into it again, because there's things, once again, that used to be done in JavaScript that are now done in CSS. So CSS has been bringing a lot of things into its own. It's not even a language, into its own whatever it is, into its own styling language of sorts, to kind of eliminate the need for things to be done in JavaScript. So yeah, basically that's probably where we'll head. We'll probably head down CSS way. Probably start at the base. Probably start at a very basic. What is CSS? Here's the basics of what you can do with CSS. Here's how you apply styles, that type of stuff. So, and then build from there. So that's the goal of all of these things, is to start small, start with the basics, and then add on.